with David Muir.
Good evening, and it's great to have you with us here as we near the end
Listen
of the
up.
week together. And just before we came on the air tonight, the head of the CDC and that new estimate just in, revealing the latest models now forecast the number of deaths from coronavirus here in the U.S. will exceed 100,000 by June 1st. Of course, that's just a couple of weeks from now. Tonight, as this country now begins to reopen, the toll on so many families already. More than 85,000 lives now lost. President Trump today making news with his hope for a vaccine by year's end. The Pentagon later making clear that this is a goal, not a promise. 48 states already beginning to ease restrictions, many crowding into some Texas venues, though new numbers in just late today from Texas showing a dramatic increase in cases and the highest two-day death toll there yet. And in New York State, the governor now saying a barber who stayed open despite the state orders now has the virus. The governor saying at least a dozen customers now have the virus too. A sign of how difficult all of this reopening in different parts of the country will be. There are new concerns tonight about testing in the U.S. How accurate are the tests, the false negatives, and the new analysis and what it shows about a small window apparently for accurate results. A lot of Americans who thought they had it, then had a negative test, will want to hear more on this tonight. So we're going to guide you through it all on a Friday evening, and we begin here with ABC's Whit Johnson, leading us off from New York.
Tonight, as more states begin to reopen, including parts of New York, the epicenter of the crisis, an alarming new headline. One barber in Kingston, New York, staying open. The hairstylist testing positive for coronavirus. The governor saying he spread the disease to multiple customers and that it serves as a warning.
Barber in Kingston was operating in defiance of the close order. Infected, I think, over a dozen people. You can't really socially distance and do a haircut.
This as summer.
We're going to have to get used to maybe not having so much electricity, but I think as time goes on, things will get back to normal, hopefully.
By Sunday, 48 states will have started to partially reopen. Here in upstate New York, authorities
open.
From New York to Connecticut to Delaware and the Jersey Shore, where today the state hit a new grim milestone. More than 10,000 deaths from COVID-19.
Wow. This week is a test. We're going to look how many people come, how controllable it was.
Today, New York taking its first steps toward reopening. Just 5 regions in the central and northern part of the state qualifying for phase 1, allowing construction, manufacturing, and retail limited to pickup and drop-off.
We need to get the cash flow in. I need to get guys back to work.
But while some parts of the state are slowly getting back to work, businesses in hard-hit areas like New York City will just have to wait, where the governor extended the stay-at-home order through at least the end of May. Tonight, at least 48 states now easing restrictions, but none of them reporting consecutive 14-day drops in new cases. And in 4 of those states, infections are actually on the rise. Texas tonight reporting the deadliest 48 hours yet, 2 weeks after easing restrictions, following scenes like this at a crowded Houston restaurant. Governors desperate to lessen the economic pain. More than 36 million Americans filing for unemployment. And today the government says retail sales plunged a record 16.4% last month. Sales at restaurants and bars slashed nearly in half.
It is the difference between potentially being able to support oneself long-term as a business and not.
In Florida, the governor says starting Monday, restaurants can expand to 50% capacity and gyms can reopen. And tonight, new signs of hope out west. The Navy hospital ship Mercy heading home to San Diego, 49 days after arriving in Los Angeles to alleviate the burden on hospitals. And the roar of the Air Force Thunderbirds soaring over Southern California today, honoring our healthcare heroes.
Extremely powerful pictures. Whit Johnson with us live here in New York City and along the beach there, and I know there'll be changes in the days ahead. They want people to be very careful as they begin to reopen the beaches in other parts of New York State. But all of this comes tonight with that new estimate from the head of the CDC just out before we came on, those sobering new projections as this country reopens. They're trying to prepare Americans to recognize that the toll could reach more than 100,000 by June 1st.
And David, the CDC director, saying in a tweet tonight that 12 different projection models are now showing that death toll exceeding 100,000 in just the next couple of weeks. Meantime, here in New York, where the state is reopening beaches, access is going to be limited to 50% capacity, and all group activities, including sports, will be prohibited. David?
Yeah, we've all got to look out for one another. Whit Johnson leading us off tonight. Thank you. The president surrounded by his top medical advisors today. They had masks on. The president did not, but he did reiterate his goal of a vaccine by year's end. So how likely is that, and what the Pentagon made clear shortly after? Here's our chief White House correspondent, Jonathan Karl, tonight.
Across the country.
I prided myself in being able to adapt, but this was a new challenge.
The struggle to reopen comes amid a new study showing a loud talker can launch thousands of respiratory droplets so small they can remain suspended in the air for up to 14 minutes. Scientists say in confined spaces, someone who's asymptomatic could quickly spread the coronavirus. In March and April, restaurants took a $52 billion hit. Greg Morris's eatery has been closed 6 weeks.
Without the certainty, knowing that the person next to you is not infected, I don't really know how restaurants are really going to be able to come back in full force.
With some restaurants beginning to see customers again, Japanese broadcaster NHK simulated what would happen if an infected person coughed in their hands, then proceeded to a buffet. Under UV lights, 10 people who shared a water pitcher and utensils had the simulated germs on their hands and face within minutes.
Here in California, to protect customers and employees, restaurants will need to provide disposable menus, suspend the use of shared items like condiment bottles, and provide at least 6 feet of separation.
Many restaurants are also being required to reduce seating, eliminating tables as others install partitions between guests. Tonight, a nearly $900 billion industry, hoping there will soon be an appetite for diners to return to their seat at the table. Miguel Almaguer, NBC News, Los Angeles.
This is Stephanie Rule. As states open, some streets are closing, and alfresco dining is spilling into them, which means more customers for Tampa's Stone Soup Company.
That allows us to have the space necessary to do what's required, which is, distancing.
It's an effort to help restaurants' bottom lines and attract customers.
A vaccine and producing some 300 million doses by the end of the year was not achievable. David?
John Karl with us live from Washington. John, thank you. And 24 hours after the CDC issued its own new warning tonight, the new global alert from the World Health Organization about that dangerous condition affecting children. Here in the U.S. tonight, authorities are now tracking more than 220 reported cases in 20 states. And now the frustration for so many parents when testing doesn't give a clear answer. Stephanie Ramos back on this story again tonight.
Tonight, growing reports of that rare inflammatory illness in children linked to coronavirus. ABC News identifying at least 220 possible and confirmed cases in 20 states, plus D.C. More than 100 cases in New York, where 3 children have died.
Other states should expect what we have seen. We've noticed that it's 4 to 6 weeks after the peak of infections in the state.
The CDC sending that urgent alert for doctors to look out for patients with fever, inflammation, multiple organs involvement, and infection or exposure to COVID-19 within 4 weeks. Today, the World Health Organization sounding the alarms. Brittany Bowler wants to know if that's what sent her son Titus to the ER, starting with a fever.
The second day, he was just crying about his tummy. It was like his tummy was just hurting and hurting.
In a matter of days, her son's fever climbing to 104, and he was vomiting.
His lips were like super red and swollen. His eyes were bloodshot red. He was breathing really fast.
Titus was treated for Kawasaki disease and recovered, testing negative for COVID-19. But his mother now wants him tested for those antibodies. Titus's symptoms strikingly similar to 9-year-old Bobby Deans in upstate New York, who wound up in the ICU, later testing positive for the virus.
We didn't get Bobby to the doctors within 24 hours of when we did. They said we very well could have lost him. And that's
Stephanie Ramos with us tonight, and Stephanie, I know both boys thankfully recovering, but both families really do want to raise awareness.
Exactly, David. Bobby's parents are stressing the importance of early detection. The American Academy of Pediatrics is telling parents if they see any of the symptoms, stomach pain, rashes, fever, call your doctor. David.
All right, Stephanie, on this for several nights now, we thank you. Those parents frustrated there over tests and results that might not always be.
Guarantees a perfect match. 1,000 a day to over 4,000 a day. When that happened, we overwhelmed our testing labs.
Multiple states are sometimes competing to get tests processed at the same labs. Oklahoma had to scale back temporarily.
Is it possible right now in the state of Oklahoma for someone who is asymptomatic to go and get a test today?
Yes, it is.
Only a handful of states said they have opened up testing to everyone. The rest are prioritizing those who are sick and essential. But now that capacity has improved, some states are dealing with a different problem. Like in Arkansas, where some residents don't realize tests are now more available.
Some people may not see themselves as being at risk, and other people may perceive that they are increasing their risk if they go out to get tested.
There are some health officials who remain frustrated, like in Santa Clara County, California, with a population of 2 million.
The biggest challenge is everyone agrees that testing is absolutely essential, but no one can agree on who's responsible for making sure we have testing available here in the community and beyond.
In the end, experts say the goal is not to test all 330 million Americans right now, but to have the capacity to test where it is needed.
States that are building up their capacity may
rapidly double-checked.
The FDA cautions scientific studies about the test's accuracy have limitations, and those researchers acknowledge they didn't use the test machine as it's intended to be used. Abbott says its test can detect a COVID infection in a matter of minutes, and the president has repeatedly praised it.
That's a 5-minute test, highly accurate.
In a statement, Abbott saying, while we understand no test is perfect, test outcomes depend on a number of factors. And when used as instructed, they say, the test works.
We continue to recommend its use or to have it available for use.
So let's get to Kaylee Hartung with us live tonight from Los Angeles. And Kaylee, we hear over and over again how important testing is, frustration about these potential negative results, and also frustration from Americans who are still telling us that they have found it difficult to even get a test.
And David, this analysis shows that it's not just important to get a test. It matters when you get tested. So if you have symptoms and get negative results, it's recommended that you get another test. David.
All right, Kaylee Hartung with us tonight. Kaylee, thank you. We reported here just a moment ago on the president's hope for a vaccine by year's end. Well, tonight there is promising news about the vaccine in trials at Oxford and what the trials have now revealed in monkeys. Of course, the obvious question tonight, what are the next steps? Here's Maggie Rulli reporting in from London.
The study is small, but the results are promising. 6 rhesus monkeys were given a single dose of the vaccine. 14 days later, some of them developed protective antibodies against COVID-19. 28 days later, all of them did. The monkeys were then exposed to high levels of the virus, and the vaccine kept the virus from replicating in the lungs and appeared to prevent damage to them. And injecting the vaccine, which contains a weakened version of the virus, did not cause COVID-19 to form in the monkeys.
What we've seen so far is it works just as we would hope for, and it works nicely.
Success in monkeys is a key hurdle. They share so much of our DNA, but many vaccines that protect monkeys fail on humans.
I finally got the vaccination done today.
Human trials began last month with more than 1,000 volunteers injected so far.
We can be the people who solve this awful, awful pandemic.
There's a lot of hope surrounding this one and multiple trials around the world. So let's get right to Maggie. She's with us live from London. And Maggie, the obvious question for folks at home tonight, how soon before we hear about results in those human trials when it comes to this particular trial?
And well, David, those researchers at Oxford say they hope to see signs this vaccine is working in humans in just a few weeks. But even if everything goes well, it will still be months before they can roll out a vaccine. David?
Months away, but still a lot of hope tonight around the world. Maggie, thank you. When we come back here on the news tonight, the tornado watch across 5 states as we're on the air this evening as we track severe storms from Texas right up into the Northeast. We also have news on that F-22 crashing during a training exercise. News coming in on that tonight.
Guys, figured I would catch the 20.
It mixes completely. This is what
Government has called for an all-out effort.
Together, you can make things happen.
The computer Deep Blue has tonight triumphed over the world chess champion Garry Kasparov. It's the first time a machine has defeated a reigning world champion in a classical chess match.
America's first legal same-sex marriages have been taking place in Massachusetts.
God bless America!
what some are calling a human rights scandal, COVID infections and deaths coursing through America's prison population. Tonight, one of those at risk, a death row inmate who prosecutors stunningly admit never should have been convicted. Right now, prisons are among the worst outbreak sites. Nationwide, so far, more than 25,000 infected inmates and at least 373 deaths. Some governors even choosing to release inmates, angering victims' rights groups. But Walter Ogrod, who sits on Pennsylvania's death row, is not going anywhere.
My lungs felt like breathing through a wet sponge.
As his symptoms worsened in March, Ogrod felt like he was facing a double injustice. That's because the same DA's office that won his conviction for murder 25 years ago recently admitted they got it wrong and asked a judge to set him free.
We believe that the conviction as it stands is a gross miscarriage of justice.
Ogrod was convicted for the 1988 murder of 4-year-old Barbara Jean Horn under a previous Philadelphia DA. Even though no physical evidence or witnesses connected Ogrod to the crime, he confessed, though he then quickly recanted. But Patricia Cummings, who runs the Philadelphia District Attorney's Conviction Integrity Unit, says their investigation convinced her Ogrod was coerced by detectives and that key evidence was buried. Did your experience tell you that a confession is not always a red flag for guilt?
There is no doubt in my mind that false confessions occur.
And then, as Ogrod waited for his day in court,
and I can verify that because whenever I went through what I went through out in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, even though hiring an attorney by the name of Jay Silvernail, the state prosecuting attorneys was not going to let go on the first attempt, the second attempt, the third attempt, the fourth attempt, nor did they let go on the fifth attempt. It took 6 different court dates, 6 different times before my attorney finally convinced them that Mr. Jackson is not pleading guilty to something that he did not do. The charge was bringing destruction or even possible death to one of their police officers, threatening a police officer in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, that I know that I did not do. My attorney know that I did not do. The prosecuting attorney know that I did not do. But yet now, because of their bogus resorts in their tactics, they kept pleading with me and pleading with me. Now, if you'll just sign this piece of paper, time served, you can walk out just like it ain't nothing. Thing about it is something. Because now on paper, you've admitted to a crime that you never should have admitted to. The exact very same thing happened to me right here in Weakley County across the road whenever David and I was trying to protect some little children. The judicial system in this county could not stop the aggravation and the torment being terrorized by the Ridgway and the Sheffield family and other neighbor gangster related people around in this area. So because they got fed up with it so badly, they was willing to do anything, including prosecuting the wrong person. And yes, I admitted to a crime that I never should have admitted to pertaining to stalking. But you know what? There's different types of stalking. And if stalking means trying to take care of innocent children that was being subjected to an environment that no person should have been subjected to, if that's stalking, then I'll plead guilty to that charge every time under the Good Samaritan law. Under the Good Samaritan law. Once more, the way the court system is set up, they don't want you to walk away and pleading not guilty and it smear that agency. they'll go through leaps and bounds. They would almost be willing to pay you money. Please, sign this document saying that you done this, and you can walk. The thing about it is, it builds up brownie points against you every time you sign something like that. That way, if there's ever anything else that comes up, the next thing you know, those bogus charges that you bogusly admitted to will come up too. The next thing you know, you'll get ranked as being a habitual offender, and instead of you just getting a slap on the hand, now you're talking about major federal state time. The system is so broken. The system is so tainted. The system is so rigged that it's not even funny. Not just in one case, not just in two cases, but in thousands of cases all over this country. Thousands.
COVID struck his prison.
Then they put me in isolation because I had like 103-degree temperature. One guard in the nursing escorted me and said, "Congratulations, you got corona."
But Ogron was never tested. There are cases of COVID or sickness going around?
Oh, we got COVID right now. One prisoner died just recently.
Ogron's supporters, which now include the victim's mother, believe he has been doubly wronged.
We're willing to admit our mistake, yet we don't act quick enough, and something happens to them from the point of reaching that conclusion to the point of actually setting them free. So it's frightening.
Ogron is back in court in June, where a judge will decide whether to overturn his conviction or send him back to death row. Up next, as we continue this evening on the trail of COVID-19, could dogs help sniff it out in humans?
This is how.
My case wasn't quite as dramatic as a death sentence case. But the fact of the matter is, whenever I was charged up in Kentucky for making 2 non-threatening telephone calls to a group of people up in Land Between the Lakes, they used their powers and abused their powers in going all the way out to Oklahoma, picking me up and carrying me back to Kentucky so that I could go through a state evaluation for 9.5 months before they finally released me. There was no way, under any normal circumstances, should I have been charged for stalking simply by making a non-threatening telephone call that was in an apologetic form. But because that occurred, and because that I am so flamboyant with my story, I let it out to the general public about this stalking charge. And because I let it out about this stalking charge towards trying to give my Lord and Savior the glory and honor, because him being with me and allowing for his protection to be upon me during the time that I was going through that, then these people around here was going to add insult to misery. Just like my brother David said, it reminded him of a boxer, that once you put 2 boxers in a ring, and once one person realizes that he has wounded that other boxer, either in the face or in the rib cage or in the stomach or whatever, that's the area that he continues to keep punching at again and again and again. And that's exactly what they was doing right here in West Tennessee, here in Weakley County. They was going after the very spot that I had already been hit one time before pertaining to stalking charges. Yep. So the system is very corrupt, along with Tommy Moore, Tommy Thomas, and the rest of the judicial system in this particular area. I don't know about other areas, but I know that if it's this way in Oklahoma, and if it's this way in Kentucky, and if it's this way in the state of Tennessee, where I'm living at right now presently, I'm pretty sure it's probably that way across the board. That once you make them mad, once you upset them a little bit, they will absolutely render no expenses towards going after an individual and trying to destroy his or her life. So whenever the President of the United States gets on TV and says that the system is rigged, there's not enough words to express how true and how right that he truly is. There's not enough. It's sad. It's sad that so many good people, and I realize there's bad people everywhere, and there's people that deserve to have the charges that's been placed up into their lives because of their illegitimate behavior. But whenever a person is up in the woods fasting and praying for peace and fasting and praying for a revival, and they have the federal rangers, park rangers, that's attacking that individual, talking about myself, simply because I was up there fasting and praying, the charges should have been reversed. The people that should have been charged for stalking should have been the Land Between the Lakes people. Just like whenever I come back here in 2014, all this hullabaloo that kept going on again and again and again and again. And after David and I repeated ourselves in front of Tommy Moore again and again and again, the stalking charges should have been placed upon to the Ridgway family and the Sheffield family and those that was coming around this block agitating and aggravating and wanting to bring a fight to 291 Thompson Road, Sharon, Tennessee, zip code 38255. But we never could get nothing done. We hired attorneys and couldn't get nothing done. The system is definitely rigged. And you wonder how come hard times is ahead of us? You go figure it out, my friends. You go figure it out, because the wrath, the retribution has fallen upon the society to the point that now it's not just burning or hurting or bringing pain and suffering to the guilty, but now it's bringing pain and suffering to the innocent. And the reason why is because none of the innocent people want to stand up in uniting, and because they don't want to unite against this type of tyranny, against this type of corruption, now we're all eating it. Now we're all eating it.
Thanks for what? For solutions tonight, a potential new ally in the COVID battle.
Supporting your friends and neighbors.
The greatest lesson from COVID-19, we really are stronger together.
In the search for solutions tonight, a potential new ally in the COVID battle. Here's NBC's Willa Marks.
We all know the amazing power of a dog's nose. Trained to detect bombs at airports, sent to search for survivors after earthquakes. And now the fight against coronavirus could get some four-legged help too. From dogs like Storm and Asher. They're part of a British charity, Medical Detection Dogs.
Now, if they can do this reliably, it'll be a real game changer.
The hope is that COVID-19 creates a certain smell that specially trained dogs can detect on people, like they already do with malaria and some cancers.
They have 350 sensory receptors in their nose. Us poor humans got 5 million.
They've been training dogs like Star here to detect disease for more than a decade, and if COVID-19 has a signature scent, there's a good chance she'll end up in an airport, helping find those who are infected.
And the key here is that we can screen a lot of people very quickly, and it's non-invasive.
They hope to know if the disease can be sniffed out by July, allowing these dogs to become the new furry detectives on the front lines. Willa Marks, NBC News, Milton Keynes, England.
Up next, the family that found a safe way to hug grandma.
NBC Nightly News is brought to you by CFP Professionals. A confident financial plan is possible with a CFP professional.
committee as a representative of Illinois Community Colleges. In a statement, he says, "I am honored to have been asked to contribute and provide input from our region into the guidance of reopening the higher education sector across the state."
We can have a really great semester here. We need to work together to do that.
Dr. Mahoney says he and his staff will continue to follow guidelines set forth by the governor and health officials.
Just in the brief time I've been able to interact with some of the faculty, I've been amazed at their creativity and innovation and all the different ways they're thinking about doing things for the fall.
Reporting in Carbondale, Fahima Pagmani, News 3.
SIU has returned.
Rent or mortgage assistance for 1 month.
If you live within McCracken County, you can also get financial assistance by calling Paducah Cooperative Ministry Mondays through Fridays. Households typically receive $100 to $500 each. They can also get food assistance.
We'll get through it because we're all going to help each other out and look out for each other. And this is a very special community.
In Paducah, Chris Yu, WPSD Local 6.
If you're a Paducah restaurant worker who needs financial help, you can still apply to receive up to $500 through the Paducah's Tip Jar Fund. Call Family Service Society to see if you qualify. A second round of relief was distributed to small businesses in Paducah today through the city. 50 businesses received $2,000 to be used for payroll, rent, mortgage, and utilities. The city says it's possible for a third round of funding for other small businesses. Contact Community Foundation if you'd like to donate to the city's relief fund. COVID-19 continues to be monitored at a local level. McCracken County and City of Paducah leaders gave an update today at the McCracken County Emergency Management Facility. A big focus was on reopening businesses and government buildings. The McCracken County Courthouse will open on Monday. To get in, you will be required to wear a mask at all times and practice social distancing inside. The clerk's office will only be open for marriage licenses, vehicle transfers, and notary applications. You must make an appointment with the clerk's office before you go. Paducah City Hall will not be open on Monday despite Governor Beshear allowing government buildings to reopen. Paducah Mayor Brandy Harless explained why the doors of City Hall will remain closed to the public.
We have ordered and are installing plexiglass for areas in City Hall and are installing signage to help guide the movement around the building. Once everything is installed and we feel we can interact safely with the public, we'll reopen City Hall.
Mayor Harless did not share a specific date when Paducah City Hall will reopen. Businesses across Kentucky are starting to reopen with protective measures in place. A new study shows they're saving more lives. Local 6's Temi Adelea joins us. And Temi, how many COVID-19 cases would we have without protective measures?
Todd, about 35 million cases nationwide. Currently, the United States has more than 1 million. I spoke with Charles Cordemanche, an associate professor, of economics at the University of Kentucky. He says this study shows just how bad things could have gotten if we waited any longer. Strong social distancing measures in the United States reduce the COVID-19 growth rate. This is the report co-authored by Charles Cordemanche, an associate professor of economics at the University of Kentucky. He says there would have been 35 times the number of COVID-19 cases nationwide if we didn't act quick. Some interventions showed a greater effect on the daily growth of cases.
Shelter-in-place orders first, closures of restaurants and entertainment-related businesses second, and then the gathering bans, third, which is basically right on zero.
The study shows school closings and large gatherings were the least impactful. When it comes to which measure was the most impactful overall,
just removing the shelter-in-place order, but keeping the other restrictions, we still would have had 10 times more cases than we actually did. So if you look at it that way, the restaurant and entertainment-related business closures had the biggest impact on in terms of cases averted by the end of April.
As an economist, Cordemanche says he understands the importance of businesses reopening, but it's also important to see what's happening with other states that have already reopened. In Paducah, Temi Adelea, WPSD Local 6.
A study looked at cases from the beginning of March to the end of April. To see the study for yourself, find this story at WPSDLocal6.com. There is still time to buy a ticket for your chance to win a brand new home and more.
Once more, you have to take it upon yourself of chancing it. I'd rather not you feel like that it's worth the chance of getting out into a public area based around social distancing. And I put a great deal of faith upon my God towards God taking care of me. If God wants me to leave this world with the coronavirus, COVID-19, then I guess that's the way that I'll go. Hopefully, I'll still be able to fulfill my purpose, even throughout all these resistors that has tried to destroy my life. And by them destroying my life means that they have destroyed a ministry. By them destroying a ministry means that they think that they have put the halt on God's plans towards the future of biblical Bible prophecy being fulfilled. This is the same type of concept that I tell you about that occurred during the manifestation whenever King Herod heard of Jesus Christ of Nazareth coming into the world. They thought that they could stop once more biblical Bible prophecy by eliminating, some say, up to 5,000 children that got euthanized during that time, hoping that they was going to be able to find the Christ child to be able to euthanize him. Thank God, God put his protected hand up onto Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, and Jesus' fulfillment of his purpose still went ahead as planned. Thank you to my viewers. Good luck to all of us. And once more, be well. Be safe. Shalom.